Earlier today, I sat down with Graham Roustan, who spent the better part of the last 8 years as chairman of TSE Bauer and pursuing his dream of bringing a second NHL team to Toronto. Roustan's passion for hockey and desire to be part of the growth of the game has been the primary focus of his professional pursuits. With the Raptors' recent success, I wanted to know just how valuable are sports teams economically to a city.
I believe so. I believe that when you look at the seats, butts in seats, at a team that's not doing well or struggling in the standings, like they're lower down, you can actually watch a game and you see all these empty seats. Well, clearly the economic value is not there. But if you're winning, the seats are full and everybody wants to go.
One of the things that you've done is sort of, I assume, kind of run the numbers on what the saturation point is, how many fans there are in a market and how many teams it can bear. Are you convinced that the Toronto region can handle a second NHL team?
By a long shot. You know, this is the only market in North America where over 100,000 people move to the market every year. Every year, 100,000 people come to this market. And so that's unlike anywhere else in North America. So, yes, this market is actually starving, I think, for another NHL franchise.
So you haven't given up on that?
Gosh, no.
You're going to stay at it?
Absolutely.
You're also a little bit busy right now. Catch me up on what's happening with your fight in terms of kind of control or what might happen next with performance.
Well, it's been a year now. It's been exactly a year since my survey that I'd put out, that I actually hired Grant Thornton here in Toronto to do a survey. And the chairman of the board of Performance Sports Group contacted Grant Thornton and said, don't turn it over to me. That was a year ago. And since that time, the stock has dropped 84%, and $1 billion of Canadian shareholder value has evaporated in a 12-month period. So the fight goes on. I called for the CEO's resignation or termination, and the board did follow through with that. And now I'm calling for the chairman of the board to resign.
And what kind of power can you bring to this? What's your next step in terms of actually getting other shareholders on board to try to make something happen?
Well, when you lose $1 billion of shareholder value in a 12-month period,
focuses the mind.
Yeah, it's like everybody. And early when I brought this to people's attention a year ago, people were saying, you know what, it doesn't make sense to open retail stores when you're a manufacturer. It didn't really make a lot of sense. Big box stores is not the way to go nowadays. I mean, Sports Authority, I can go through the list. Nobody's out there opening big box stores. And then Bauer announces they're going to open a big box store. So at first, the retailers, actually the shareholders, were saying to me, well, this doesn't make much sense. But now that they've opened two in the States, and now last couple of weeks ago, they've announced one for Toronto, the retailers are now saying, well, why would we buy product from somebody we're competing with? So it makes absolutely no sense. And so what's happened is that the shareholders have lost $1 billion in the last 12 months.
So you would reverse that strategy. What kind of response do you get from the company when you first went to them and said, this is the strategy, it doesn't make sense, it doesn't work for us, this is what we're hearing from retailers? What's the feedback?
Well, when I went, and I actually in Toronto here had a meeting with the majority of the board here last June 5th, and they said, well, it's non-public information, so we can't share it with you. But we've got a crystal ball, and we know that this strategy is going to work. And I said to them, well, I don't understand how it's going to work. And they said, well, we can't share with you what we're thinking. So I said, okay, well, I'll put my name in. I'll go back on the board, and I'll learn that way. So I put my name in for nomination for one seat on the board, just so I can be on the inside to sort of understand this in October. And they reacted by sending out a really nasty letter that I'm not qualified to be on the board, which was really surprising.
You brought this company back to Canada. This feels personal to you?
It's very personal to me. I mean, when Nike put this company up for sale, there was 50 different private equity firms and groups that wanted Bauer. And I was the Canadian who went after it and got it. I won this process. And so I know the people. These are friends of mine that work there, and it's very personal.
Bauer is obviously the leader, iconic name in the space, and to your point, has this long relationship selling through other retailers. Are there other competitors now? I mean, is it a more crowded space than it was a few years ago?
Well, actually, it's less crowded. It's been more consolidation. Last year in 2015, Adidas announced that CCM grew its sales of CCM by 8%, which in the same period of time, I'm listening to Bauer saying that the sales are down because of currency and because of this and because of that, where CCM is growing. So, CCM is working with the same currency issues and the same headwinds. So, the opportunity here, is for me to go back in there, reverse the strategy, go back to the retailers and say, listen, we're not your competitor, we're your partner, and try to get the thing back on track.
You're obviously playing the role of the activist investor. What's in it for you? I often wonder this. You could walk away. You could say, I've done this, I'm moving on. Why is this so important to you?
Because the stakeholders involved. You know, there's 300 employees. You know, there's 150 employees in Quebec that they all know me and I know them. They know who I am. This is personal because I believe in the brand and I believe in the people, and I could walk away easily, just walk away. My plate's full. I've got so much that I'm working on and I'm doing, and I'm trying, like you said, I am trying to build a second arena in Toronto. I am trying to one day bring a second NHL team to Toronto. And those are legacy type of projects that take 10 years to get done. And so I've got my plate full. I don't need a fight, but this is a fight worth fighting.
And is the way that our system is constructed, does it work for an activist? Do you have the tools that you need to try to intervene in a public company process?
You know, I think that because Bauer is so publicly in the minds of everybody in Canada, it's a lot easier. You know, if I was a ABC widget company, it would be a lot more difficult. But when I make a phone call and I say, I'm Graham Roustan, former chairman of Bauer, the doors open up and everybody wants to come in and tell me about their sons or their daughters that are playing hockey. And a lot of people right now want to talk to me about the Canadian Women's Hockey League, which I'm very involved in. And so, you know, we get into start talking hockey. So that opens the door for me to have these meetings. But look, it's near and dear to a lot of people's hearts here in Canada, especially since I brought it back to Canada, you know. And so people that put on the skates or use the stick, they believe Bauer belongs to them.
Yeah.
And so I get phone calls from people all the time who say, I bought 100 shares in the company and I bought it at, you know, $20 a share and now it's $4 a share. What do I do? You know, it's like,
we know some investors are serial activists. They actually look for situations where they can use their leverage to make change. Right. Does that interest you, or is this a one-off for you?
Well, you know, that's funny because this came to me, but it sort of fell in my lap, and I think that this could be the first of maybe some other opportunities.